Hey folks, I wanted to do a quick screencast and show you a couple of great examples of educational resource centers and point out some of the design decisions that these have made and how you could apply those to your own educational resource center, and just talk about some of the issues about creating this kind of content marketing asset and how it affects the process of creating it and so forth. So the first one here is from QuickSprout. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Online Marketing. And as you scroll down, you see a little bit of sort of metadata about it, why we made it, who it's for. And then what you see is chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2. So each chapter has a title, and then you can click through to that chapter. So in a way, this is sort of framed as if it were an online book. And, when you look at the volume of content, it's pretty close to, a small business book. There's a little pop-up modal that I'm going to dismiss. So we'll go back to the index. So the index page is nicely designed, but it's also very simple. It's a linear list of chapters with a quick synopsis of each chapter, a little icon, and a link to link into the chapter. And if you click through to a chapter, and I'm going to jump to the bottom here with the keyboard command, there's navigational links to take you to the previous and following chapter. And you see things that you often do not see in blog posts, like a summary of key takeaways. That's another thing that sort of sets this apart from just a generic blog post. And, finally, there's a little bit more design applied to it than you typically see applied to a blog post. Another pop-up modal. So this is definitely for QuickSprout a lead generation tool. That's what all the pop-up modals are about. And it's also an authority building tool. Once you've consumed all this content, your level of trust in these guys is quite a bit higher than when you started. So that's QuickSprout. Here's another interesting example from Brian Clark's, what seemed to start as sort of a side project and now seems to be his main business, Rainmaker FM, which is a hosted content management system that is got some differences from WordPress, but you can think of it sort of as a highly customized version of WordPress. He has a online resource center that I think it was around summer of 2015 is when they started building this. And they had a very interesting approach that I'll give you a little more detail on. But this is the index page for the resource center. So it's got a list of lessons, some kind of marketing copy, if you will, for the resource center, and some social proof, and, several call to action buttons. And what is interesting to me about this is the entire thing is behind a registration, a register wall. So I guess it's a little bit like the New York Times paywall, except it's free, but it's kind of the same content. They're banking on the idea that, you're going to want this content enough to register for it. It did not start out that way. It started out all out in the open. But again, it's now behind this register wall. So let me show you what it looks like when you get logged in. So they're calling it Rainmaker Training, your permanent portal to lessons, webinars, and supplemental materials. And this is something they built over time. Their approach to it was very interesting because they sort of created this content and launched this whole thing with a podcast series. And so what they did was each, quote unquote lesson was a podcast episode, and then they had that transcribed, the audio of the podcast transcribed. So there's the audio transcribed into a text PDF, or actually, sorry, here, transcript, and then lightly edited into a PDF. And so they've got a number of lessons, some webinars that they kind of applied the same treatment to. And this is now a content marketing asset that they use to generate leads for their software platform. But the exact same thing could work for you and your professional services firm if the content itself has enough value. And this content is valuable content. I think that because it's behind a register wall and therefore is not having Google bring organic traffic to it, that Brian and his team are kind of relying on their massive network of connections to send traffic here from other web properties. So that's why this is able to work as a lead generation tool. But if you were going to build a resource center that was completely behind a register wall and not visible to, search engines like Google, you would need to think through how you're going to get traffic to that resource center. Here's another one from a company called Send With Us, how to send an email like a startup. And again, it starts to look a little bit like some blog posts, but what's nice about how these guys have approached this is over here, there's a dynamic navigation menu, which as you scroll through, let's see here, you kind of see see the menu sort of dynamically following the content and expanding out to make it very easy to see where you are in the context of this larger multi-part piece of content. So that's very nicely done. To be honest, I'm not sure how they're doing opt-ins here. Of course, the sort of easiest way to do a resource center is put together a bunch of content and give it some kind of cohesive navigation experience, and then just, hope that people sign up for more. But I think you can leverage, if you're going to invest this much into creating some content, I think you can definitely leverage it a little more heavily and give people good reasons to opt in. Here's another great example of an educational resource center. This one from Ramit Sethi, Ultimate Guide to Getting a Raise and Boosting Your Salary. So it's the same sort of thing. It's, lengthy content that is got, a bit of a design element to it to make it look better than just a bunch of blog posts. And it's got a navigational component that lets you jump around and, easily navigate through the content. It's got a little bit of extra sort of a design element, with these call out quotes and things like, click to tweet buttons to make it easier to share, video content. But basically, at the end of the day, this is not that different than 5 long blog posts that have been stitched together into a resource center with some opt-ins here at the end, and then some navigation to progress you to the next lesson in the course. Here's another one that's very similar. This one from Espresso and, the Beginner's Guide to Facebook Advertising. So a little bit of an overview. You can click to start reading, or you can just read down here and you see a nice, again, with a little bit of design, list of, chapters, but really these are just like long blog articles with a title and some text and then a button to, navigate you to that part of the course. A little bit of, nicely designed navigational structure here on the top right. And, these are actually not even that long. And then a, navigation element at the bottom with an optional opt-in. Here's another one from my friend Marcus Blankenship. I helped him build this. It's a resource center on becoming a great manager. Same kind of thing, just a linear list from top to bottom of blog articles, but instead of just having an auto-generated blog index, the articles have a manually generated synopsis, the ability to click through and read more. And then if we jump to the bottom here, some navigation to take you to the next article. If I recall correctly, what we're doing here with Marcus's is looking at the the CMS is WordPress, and it's got a plugin that's looking at the number of page views. And then once you've passed the threshold of page views on this Resource Center content, it's giving you an opt-in, which is not something that's dismissible through the user interface, so that you can, quote unquote, log in to see the rest. Here's another one. This one I wanted to include because this is there's no slight against predictable revenue, but this is the minimum. Like this is how easy it can be to put together a resource center. This has no special design element. This, as far as I can tell, is just a regular page on their website where they have written up some information to give context to the articles that they're linking to. And then, you scroll down here a little further and you see that they just have links to various articles they've written. So what they're doing here is sort of extracting from their blog all the stuff that relates to a particular topic and wrapping it in some information to give it context and help you kind of navigate through it in a sensible way. And then just say, linking out to things and saying, do this in this order. In general, I would recommend a little more, making it feel a little more unique and special and differentiated from the rest of your site, at least visually. But, it can be this easy. And then here's the slide in, opt-in in the bottom right. Another content resource center done in a bit of a different way. This is Dave Hefner's Elemental Selenium. Free once a week emails on how to use Selenium like a pro. So this is kind of, let's just get into it and you'll see what it is. So it's a very simple landing page with just a, nice, great looking, but honestly, pretty minimalistic description of what you get, which is exactly what a landing page should be, and, an opt-in form to sign up for the list. But where this gets to be a little bit more than just a landing page is here, there's an archive of previous tips. So here's 70 previous tips. There's a little bit of tagging and categorization, so you can look at, all the tips related to infrastructure or all the tips of a particular skill level. That's just basically blog categorization, giving you, a different filtered view of the content. So this is great because it gets people, it's just the shortest path between, organic web traffic and new list members. That may or may not be ideal for every type of business, but it works really well for Dave. And, another interesting thing is that this could serve as a very good call to action. So if Dave was giving a talk or appearing as a podcast guest or being on a webinar, he could wrap that up with a call to action that's like, hey, go to elementalselenium.com and sign up for my list. You'll get the same kind of stuff I've been talking about here, but in your inbox every week. So I consider this a really, nice example of a content resource center or an educational resource center. And it's one that you could use, for your business, this same kind of model. This sort of approach, this is just a straight up Google search for Selenium dropdown. It does, over time, it can do very well in terms of organic traffic. So, here on the first page of Google results is a result from Elemental Selenium. Okay. Here's my final example. Just notice the modal pop-up that provides one of the opt-in options here. This is something called Churn University from the same people who did Less Accounting. They have a new product called Lessturn. And this is a lovely example of an educational resource center. It is basically, again, this is not meant to be dismissive, but it's basically a bunch of blog posts. And if it was presented as a blog, it would not look very awesome at all. But instead of that, it's been presented as, they're calling it a university. no one's going to think this is a 4-year degree, but just using that word, I think, elevates the value, the perceived value of the content above that of just a blog. And then the presentation is really nice. So the index page is these tiles that you can click on. Each tile just takes you to what's essentially a blog post. They've got a nice navigational sidebar here, and then an opt-in for a video course. A lot of the content is text, but you also have let's see here. Here they've got a probably a JavaScript powered churn calculator, so a little bit of interactive content, and tools somewhere in here. I don't know. I saw a video somewhere in here. So they're mixing different types of content, but they're bringing it all together in this sort of cohesive navigational experience that's very nice. And just the last thing I'll say about Churn University is how you get to this, of course, could be through organic Google search traffic. So Google could land you there as a as a response to your search that you did for some question about churn. But also, if you go to their site, Lessturn.io, right up here in the menu bar, right about where you would expect to see a blog, you see this link to Churn University. So if I click there, I get sent over to this subfolder, SaaS Churn University. And I think what's nice is once I'm here, they kind of step away from trying to sell me on the SaaS. So if you notice the SaaS, the marketing homepage for Lessturn has a menu bar, but when I click through to Churn University, the menu bar goes away. And it really is just sort of saying, here, take some time out from whatever you're doing and learn about the problem that we help you solve. And what that does for the level of trust of a potential client is just incredible when you're saying, here's my free gift to you, all these resources that are designed to be helpful to you, to help you, run your business better, to solve some particular problem. And they're organized in a way that's easy to navigate around. And, any opt-ins that we're asking for are just there to provide you more value in your inbox. When you do that in an educational resource center, I think you've really just, gotten it 100% right. And once something like this is built, you don't have to add on to it every week, every month, or ever again. But if you're focused on a particular audience or a particular problem that they have, then you are inevitably going to encounter new issues, new questions that clients have. And so those will often spur new pieces of content that you can add to your educational resource center so that you can, over time, add on to it, update it, keep it fresh. But you don't have to have it as a weekly to-do on your to-do list to update it. Once it's there, then it just kind of works quietly in the background, either as a destination for organic Google search results or as a call to action for you to send prospective clients to learn more about what awesome things you can do for them.